I'm talking today about the relevance and the importance of using intuition in our studies of the Sabian symbols. Intuition linguistically means an inner teaching. You learn something from consulting your feelings. This is in distinction to thinking rationally. The mind is trained in a certain discipline of clear thought. A leads to B, leads to C. Intuition does not do that. It's holistic, it's immediate, it's spontaneous. And if we can balance those two things, then we have a proper approach to life, actually, but Sabian mysteries in particular. So, intuition is not given to everyone. It can be developed by some by doing certain practices. Now, the most important practice that you can do to develop intuition is to trust your intuition. Intuition doesn't always tell you the truth. Sometimes it lies. The quiet inner voice, which is referred to as intuition, has a counterpart. There's another quiet inner voice as well that tells lies. Those two, they're not exactly the same. They feel very similar, but you can tell the difference. And this is what we have to do if we want really to develop our intuition to the point of clairvoyance or clairaudience or just knowledge, immediate knowledge without measurement or reference or logic. Obviously, some people who trust their intuition more than others are going to be able to validate some of their intuitive assessments and invalidate other ones. If you study that, if you study the difference between when you're right and when you're wrong, that's another way of improving your intuition. Check that what you intuitively thought was the case is the case. If it is not, then correct your mistakes, improve. Trial and error, it's all there is in life, trial and error. And this applies to intuition too. People who say, oh, I know this is the case because I just feel it is so. There are psychics, of course there are. And some of these psychics are immensely accurate, but never 100%, never. Nor is it wise for you to trust the appraisal of a psychic willy-nilly. You can have faith, you can listen to their words, and you can just see how that feels within yourself. And if that feeling within yourself aligns with your sense of reasonableness and goodness, then trust it. Only because you validated somebody else's suggestion, not because they've suggested it. There's a very subtle and important difference here. Now, to trust our intuition, we have to use the intuition. We can't trust something that we don't use. So the Sabian symbols cannot be accessed without intuition, not in my experience. If we look at the process whereby we come to know something of the Sabians, it starts with Elsie Wheeler, a psychic medium, using pretty much nothing but intuition to get the symbols visually. She described them to Jones, who was an extraordinarily rational thinker. He was the very other end of the scale. So you're talking about two extraordinary people here, one far left, one far right, and the marriage of their work created this beautiful system of knowledge, the Sabian symbols. When you apply them to yourself, you have to interpret Elsie's visual images expressed through Jones's systematic explanations, which were very pragmatic, very everyday and ordinary in a sense, whereas Rudyard took it to another level. He laid upon the 360 degrees a template, a measure of spiritual evolution, 360 individual stages of spiritual evolution. Now, obviously, Rudyard was trusting his intuition rather more than Jones was. And I find Rudyard more accessible. I am willing to trust my intuition. And sometimes the Sabian intuitively feels strange but right. I can't understand why I've got that Sabian symbol, but it just feels right somehow. And then I start studying it more, looking into it, looking for signs around symbols of that happening. In other words, let's say, for example, my sun sign, old man, attempting vainly to reveal the mysteries. In other words, a teacher who can't actually get his point across. That didn't really mean anything to me when I first read the symbol. I'm not an old man. When I read the symbol, I was a young man. I wasn't a teacher. I didn't find any difficulty expressing myself. It was meaningless to me. And yet, I liked it. I felt there was something about it that I wanted. Yes, this does speak to me. And I left it alone for many, many years, 20 years or something, before I actually came back to the subject and studied it. And as I became more and more an old man, I became more and more aware that it's quite difficult for me to get my point across, and understand why that's an advantage. That's the other thing, that the expressions of Jones and Rudyard of what this symbol means tend towards the negative, especially Jones. He speaks of my Sabian symbol as one of the very few essentially negative ones in the whole set. Rudyard doesn't see it that way, and I don't see it that way. This is the thing, yeah, this is my intuition, not Jones's, not even Rudyard's, it's mine. These Sabian symbols once were Elsie's and only Elsie's, and then they were shared by Elsie and Jones, and then they were shared by all the students, and now they're ours, they belong to us. So my understanding of what is the meaning of any particular Sabian symbol is my business. It really does need to check out against Jones and Rudyard and so on, but in the end it's my business, my choice about what it means. So we have said that the Sabian symbols are really not accessible except by including your intuition in your interpretation of them. The text I've put on the website is meant to be ambiguous. In some cases, Jones and Rudyard actually disagreed about the meaning of a sign. In a few cases, I've done the same thing. I've kind of found an aspect of the image which speaks to me in a way that it didn't speak to the masters, and so I've included that. And I'm starting to add commentaries to the website now, where some of my students are adding their understandings of the Sabian symbols, which are different from mine, different from Jones, different from Rudyard. So we're building up this sense of, well, it could mean this, it could mean that, in order for the reader to be forced, almost, certainly encouraged, to decide, what does all this mean? It's paradoxical even. It's certainly ambiguous. It's not totally clear. It's confusing. Let that be true. Be confused. Be rendered. Make it the case that the paradox has to be rendered. You have to just find a way to explain how that and that, which appears to be opposite, actually they're aspects of deeper wisdom. And that deeper wisdom is yourself. Intuition can be developed by using it. This is what I've said. And I'm saying, well, we need Sabians to develop intuition. We need intuition to develop Sabians. We can also use other means. We can use tarot cards or dream interpretation or reading tea leaves or the runes or the I Ching, or there are so many devices which enable us to train in deepening our intuition. There are reasons why this is much more important than simply clarifying our identity. Times ahead will be troublesome. This is really clear to us all. And some things will happen which are going to put us into harm's way. We need to develop the intuition that we have further in order to be safe when circumstances around us are chaotic and confused. If a situation is unfolding and you just don't have any explanation at all, you just feel wrong. Something's wrong here. Trust that. Don't stay. If a person looks on the surface fine, they speak all the words you want to hear, but when you get close to them, you're not relaxed anymore. You tense up. That's your intuition speaking to you. It might be that you smell something that the physical body can interpret as offensive or dangerous. We don't really know how to explain what triggers intuition. But when you learn to live according to your intuition, balanced with common sense, then life becomes quite a lot safer, and it becomes a lot richer, and it actually becomes faster as well. You get to be almost like you're surfing through life. You're dancing the dance of life much more.